start in about 1 minute. Thank you.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Please take a seat, everybody. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I am humbled to be with each and every one of you in this historic State House. As in this moment, we're prepared to make our own history together. Because there's something that we know is that things do not just happen. Things are made to happen. And you all in this room have made some pretty extraordinary things happen. The Maryland State Constitution vests the power to pardon in the office of the governor, and the governor alone. This is a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. And that is why this morning, with deep pride and soberness, I will pardon over 175,000 convictions Thank you all. We need to stop that so I can get you to sign your pardon. But I will pardon these convictions. All convictions related to the possession of cannabis and cannabis paraphernalia. Maryland legalized cannabis by referendum. This administration has stood up what many believe to be one of the most equitable and efficient adult cannabis market rollouts of any state in the entire country. In March, we conducted our first adult-use cannabis licensing round, and all 174 licenses were awarded exclusively to social equity applicants. And to be clear, that's the first time that that has happened in our nation's history. And yet, we know that legalization does not turn back the clock on decades of harm that was caused by this war on drugs. Legalization does not erase the fact that nearly half of all drug arrests in Maryland during the early 2000s were for cannabis. It doesn't erase the fact that black Marylanders were 3 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis than white Marylanders before legalization. It doesn't erase the fact that having a conviction on your record means a harder time with everything, from housing to employment to education. It doesn't erase the fact that people who were arrested for cannabis 3 or 4 or 40 years ago still have those convictions on their records to this day. We cannot celebrate the benefits of legalization if we do not address the consequences of criminalization. So I want to be clear. When it comes to cannabis, rolling out one of the best and most equitable legal markets in the country is incredibly important. But that rollout must go hand in hand with pardoning past conduct, and Maryland is going to lead by example. Yes. So today, this executive order is the most sweeping state-level pardon in any state in American history. That's right. And the action that we take together this morning is going to directly impact tens of thousands of Marylanders. So first, I will grant pardons to Marylanders who have been convicted for misdemeanor possession of cannabis. And second, I will grant full pardons to Marylanders who have been convicted of certain misdemeanor possession crimes of drug paraphernalia. So we aren't nibbling around the edges. We are taking actions that are intentional, that are sweeping, and unapologetic. And this is the largest such action in our nation's history. But there's a reason that we're being so intentional today. And there's a reason that we're moving so swiftly. And that reason is because we've studied our history. Policy making is powerful. And if you look at the past, you see how policies have been intentionally deployed to hold back entire communities. We're talking about tools that have led to the mass incarceration of black men and boys. We're talking about tools that have led to restricted access to jobs and housing in minority communities. We're talking about tools that have led to an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap in our state. Because we know we do not get to an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap because one group is working 8 times harder. Tools that have been used to create these disparities. And to undo that kind of intentionality, we need to apply intentionality of our own. So today, we take a big step enacting the kinds of policies that can reverse the harm of the past and to help us to work together to build a brighter future. So now this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. And we could not have gotten here without the extraordinary partnership of our incredible lawmakers and leaders and advocates. I want to thank our remarkable Attorney General Anthony Brown for all of his work in making today happen. I want to thank Jason Ortiz and all of his colleagues at the Last Prisoner Project. I want to thank Heather Warnken from the University of Baltimore School of Law. I want to also thank my team, who have been in the trenches, working countless hours on this for months, making sure that we are dotting every I, crossing every T, making sure that we leave no one behind. You have continued to show that leave no one behind is not a slogan. It's a governing philosophy. And we wouldn't be here without you all. Bless you. Thank you. I want to thank all of our legislative partners, and specifically I also want to give a shout out to the leader of the Legislative Black Caucus, Janelle Wilkins, for her work. We would not be here if it weren't for our remarkable partners in the legislature. We would not be here if it were not for our remarkable partners in law enforcement, who've worked in partnership every single step of the way. We would not be here if it were not for our activists, who continue to push us to go farther, to go faster, to work harder, to make sure that we are accomplishing everything that this moment demands. We would not be here if it were not for our community champions, who continue to remind us, not just by words, but by deeds, who continue to remind us about the humanity of this work. And if you never forget who you were fighting for, you will never stop fighting. Each and every one of you have been part of this broad coalition that have got us here to this day. A day where Maryland is going to unapologetically lead, and where Maryland is going to use this moment to right many historical wrongs. We wouldn't be here if it were not for people like Shiloh Jordan. Shiloh was convicted of a minor cannabis offense after he dropped out of college. He got hired after his conviction, but he was fired on the second day of the job because he did not pass his background check. The only thing on his criminal record was a minor cannabis charge. And that's what got him fired on his second day of the job. But his story doesn't end there. He took job training courses. He went back to college. He became a bulldog after graduating from Bowie State. And today, he works with the remarkable Center for Urban Families in Baltimore, led by my guy, Joe Jones. And Shiloh spends his time now helping other Marylanders find their way and find their path. Shiloh was not handed a second chance. He built one for himself, despite the odds, despite a system that was not built to support your second chance. And you made it count. But those successes do not change the fact that Shiloh still has a cannabis conviction on his record. It'll keep showing up in background checks. Even if the conviction does not stop him from achieving his full promise, that thing on his record is going to continue to make it harder. And importantly, it's going to serve as a consistent reminder to Shiloh. Well, today, that ends. Because today, Shiloh is going to be one of over 175,000 Marylanders who will now get a full gubernatorial pardon, and that will be that done conviction. Shiloh, Shiloh, can you please stand so we can recognize you?
Yes.
Great to see you, brother. So let me end with this. Today is a big step forward, but I want to be clear, it will not be our last. I think if people see anything about this administration, we move fast. We're going to make every single day count. We are going to use every lever at our disposal. Pardons, executive orders, the budget, working with legislative partners, anything and everything to make every day matter. Undoing decades of harm cannot happen in a day. But we're going to keep up the work. We're going to keep up the pace. We're going to do it together. This is about recognizing our collective shared humanity. This is about recognizing our collective shared responsibility. This is about understanding if we don't move in this moment, there will be shared complicity. And we refuse to let that sit in. This is about changing how both government and society view those who have been walled off from opportunity because of broken and uneven policies. And as James Baldwin once said, the world changes according to the way that people see it. And if you alter, even by a millimeter, the way a person looks, or people, how they look at their own realities, then you can change it. Well, today, we start making that kind of change. It's a change that centers on how we look at one another. It's a change that centers on how we respect each other. And it's going to be the thing that helps Maryland to lead in this moment and in many moments to come. This is a big day, Maryland. A hard-fought victory. Not just for over 175,000 Marylanders and their families, but for the soul of our state. I'm now proud to turn the podium over to my friend and partner inside the work, our Attorney General, Anthony Brown.
Governor Moore, thank you for your leadership, your beliefs, your strong convictions, and for your values, our shared values of fairness and equity. Today's announcement is significant for several reasons. First, it's long overdue. As a nation, we've taken far too long to correct the injustices of a system that is supposed to be just for all. Yet, within an unprecedented time frame, Governor, you took bold and courageous action. Second, the sheer magnitude of your executive order. You are wielding the immense power of your office for good, pardoning scores of Marylanders by pardoning 175,000 convictions. And third, your action today is about equity. It's about racial justice. While the order applies to all who meet its criteria, the impact is a triumphant victory for African Americans and other Marylanders of color who were disproportionately arrested, convicted, and sentenced for actions yesterday that are lawful today. Today is a momentous day for Maryland. As Maryland's first African-American Attorney General, entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring that our justice system is just that, I remain troubled by the oft pernicious significance of race in Maryland and in America. Too often, the color of one's skin defines one's opportunities. Too often, the enforcement of laws that are facially colorblind disproportionately impact people of color. And the laws that once criminalized possession of cannabis are prime examples. Data uncontrovertibly shows that Black and Latino and white Americans use cannabis at the same rate, yet Black and Latino Americans are arrested, charged, and convicted at higher rates. Plainly put, the enforcement of cannabis laws has not been colorblind. It's been unequal treatment under the law. The tragic realities: joblessness, homelessness, poverty, violence, torn families, and broken communities. It has been a long and arduous climb up a steep and jagged mountain. Ask former Mayor Kurt Schmoke, who in 1988 was called the most dangerous man in America because of his call for drug decriminalization all those years ago. And today, after decriminalizing cannabis and making adult use lawful, we reach new heights, a righting of historical wrongs. Maryland is a work in progress. The shackles of slavery, though physically removed, left an indelible mark on our state and our nation. The promise of Reconstruction was replaced by Jim Crow laws that stripped free Black people of our rights and treated us like second-class citizens. After the Civil War, instead of freedom, we experienced the emergence of the convict leasing system that exploited Black labor under the guise of punishment. Our current reality of disproportionate arrests and convictions are the residuals of slavery. The war on drugs was a war on communities of color. The data shows the deeply rooted bias in drug-related arrests and sentencing. Cannabis convictions for hundreds of thousands of people here in Maryland were scarlet letters, modern-day shackles. This morning, I can almost hear the clanging of those shackles falling to the floor with your pardon this morning, Governor. Thank you. And as the governor said, there's more work to do. Maryland bears a sad distinction. We incarcerate Black men at the highest levels in the nation. 71% of our prison population is Black, yet we're only 31% of Maryland's overall population. It's another alarming racial disparity and one of my top priorities. Last October, the public defender, Natasha Darteague, who's here today, and thank you for your work, the public defender and I launched the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. Our goal, working with 40 stakeholder organizations, many of whom are represented here in the room today, is to develop solutions to the problem of far too many young Black men being sent to prison. Governor, I want to thank you for supporting this initiative, and again, thank you for today's pardon. There's much more work left to be done.
All right, how's everybody doing today? You ready to make history? Yeah, today is a beautiful day to make history. I just want to say thank you to Governor Moore and Attorney General Brown for bringing everyone together today. My name is Jason Ortiz, and I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Last Prisoner Project. We are the nation's leading organization dedicated to helping everyone incarcerated for cannabis crimes find their freedom, reunite them with their families, and ensure their criminal histories do not prevent them from being full, productive members of society. And today we sit with nearly 3,000 60,000 Americans still incarcerated in federal prison and nearly 40,000 Americans incarcerated in state prisons. We want to thank Governor Moore for his leadership on this issue and for inviting us to be part of this historic moment. Though enforcing cannabis prohibition may be in Maryland's past, healing the harms it created must be part of its future. And simply put, justice is not achieved merely by legalization alone, but rather by deliberately undoing the harms caused by the war on drugs. As someone who at the age of 16 was arrested for cannabis possession and actually had an accelerated charge because I had paraphernalia and a pack of rolling papers, I was thrown out of school, denied access to my high school education, ripped from my family and my friends, and had to endure 2 years of isolation for a simple cannabis possession charge. The Last Prisoner Project applauds Governor Moore and his administration's actions to rectify this historic racial disparities caused by cannabis prohibition. This executive order goes further than any other cannabis clemency action in American history by including paraphernalia charges in addition to possession. And let's give it up for that. Today is literally the most powerful day in cannabis justice history for the entire nation. That's an incredible thing. It's incredible. And recently, in 2022, President Biden made history by becoming the first president to offer blanket pardons for federal possession of cannabis charges. His administration doubled down on this pardon when he boldly stated in this year's State of the Union that no one should be jailed for using and possessing marijuana. Biden also called for state governors to use the awesome power of clemency to address the lifelong consequences of a cannabis charge. The Last Prisoner Project has amplified this call through our Pardons to Progress campaign, which has sent tens of thousands of letters to governors across the nation. We are so proud that Governor Moore has boldly answered our call to action, setting the example of what state-level leadership looks like. So thank you for that leadership. Even more powerfully, Governor Moore has granted these pardons, the largest of their kind to date, using the pen to write history. A pen that family, friends, loved ones of people who have served time for cannabis crimes have used to write letters to elected officials asking for justice across the country. As a powerful symbol of change, Governor Moore's action today sets the example that governors across the country can aspire to by carrying the momentum of this pen forward through taking executive action in their state to right the wrongs created by the war on our communities. The Last Prisoner Project encourages all governors to follow Governor Moore's example, and we are here to help you get it done. For those watching from home today who would like to get more involved in this life-changing work or know a friend or family member currently incarcerated for cannabis, you can learn more about our work and support our fight for justice at thelastprisonerproject.org. And in closing, I'd just like to say again, thank you to Governor Moore for your leadership and everyone who made it possible today. This action will bring hope to thousands of families across the country, and we are truly honored to be part of this historic moment. Thank you all so much.
Good morning. My name is Heather Warnken, and I am the Executive Director at the Center for Criminal Justice Reform at the University of Baltimore Law School, and I am truly honored to share in this historic moment today. Today isn't just a win for thousands of Marylanders getting a fresh start to pursue education and employment and other forms of economic opportunity without the stain of a criminal conviction. Today is also a win for systemic legitimacy, which when it comes to the criminal justice system is badly in need of repair. Legalization and decriminalization were huge steps forward for our state. But those advances are just a piece of a much bigger puzzle of addressing the devastating drug war, which disproportionately harmed and continues to harm marginalized Black and brown communities, even as privileged entrepreneurs begin to build wealth through this new emerging legal market. Moving Maryland forward must also entail complementary efforts to reach into the past to more fully repair that harm. It must include the courage of our elected leaders to admit to those wrongs and proactively exercise their power and authority to make them right. The exact type of courage that Governor Moore is demonstrating here today. And while this profound power of executive clemency rests in the governor's hands alone, I am also here to underscore an enormous thank you to the people and organizations outside of the administration who made this possible. This historic moment is the product of partnership. Our center had the great honor of helping to convene a diverse and dedicated coalition of experts who kept showing up, not just to offer their insights to help advise the administration, but to push them to go further and not leave potential relief or hope on the table. To help navigate this complex and imperfect system of ours in pursuit of a categorical pardon that is data-driven and community-driven and in the interest of both equity and public safety. This coalition included first and foremost the voices of directly impacted Marylanders with lived expertise, and representatives from the Maryland Expungement Coalition, the Center for Urban Families, Out for Justice, Clean Slate Initiative, and frontline legal service providers, including the Office of the Public Defender, Maryland Legal Aid, Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, as well as national partners with expertise in collateral consequences and clemency, like Last Prisoner Project. Yeah. The governor and his team sought and welcomed this partnership, saying, we will do this together so we can do this right. Thank you to each and every one of those partners who worked so collaboratively leading up to today, and who will continue to show up tomorrow, because this work is far from over. This is phase 1, and we commit to working hand in hand in phase 2 and beyond. Not just in continuing to support the administration in the further exercise of clemency in urgent and historic ways, but in partnering to address the related, intolerable injustices that persist even after Maryland's legalization. For example, the need to address legislatively the barrier that in this state, any probation violation, no matter how small, including decades-old possession of small amounts of now legal cannabis, permanently bars Marylanders from expunging their convictions. We have a lot of work to do. But for this moment here today, we celebrate this first step. We celebrate the justice and dignity and restoration that it represents. And filled with that momentum, tomorrow we keep forging ahead.